The triple suns of Karash descended toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the ancient ruins that jutted from the desert, like the bones of some long-dead titan. The light caught on crystalline structures, half buried in sand, refracting into prismatic halos that danced across the barren landscape. Atop the highest spire of the archaeological remnants stood a lone figure, her silver-hued skin glistening in the fading light, a crystal spear humming softly in her grip. Salira of the Karash tribe narrowed her amber eyes against the harsh light, scanning the ruins below. The vibration of her crystal spear intensified, resonating with something, or someone, among the forgotten technology. Her quarry was close. She could feel it. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of ozone and something unfamiliar. Salira tensed, her muscles coiling like springs as she prepared to strike. A shadow moved across the sand below, too deliberate to be cast by the setting suns. She watched as a figure in a tattered cloak emerged from behind a fallen pillar, moving with quiet confidence through the dangerous terrain. Alex. The name burned in her mind like a brand. The elders had been clear. This outsider threatened everything the Karash had built. Whether by capture or kill, Salira would fulfill her duty. She measured the distance, 40 feet, a challenging throw even for her skill. But she was Karash, born of the Silver Sands and trained from childhood to hunt the most dangerous prey. With practiced precision, she adjusted her grip on the humming spear, feeling the crystal's vibrations synchronize with her heartbeat. She inhaled, held the breath, and released the weapon in one fluid motion. The spear cut through the air with a high-pitched whine, its crystal tip glowing with stored energy. At the last possible moment, the cloaked figure stepped aside, not hurriedly, but with the casual grace of someone avoiding a minor inconvenience. The spear embedded itself in the sand, its energy dissipating in a small shockwave that scattered the fine grains in a perfect circle. The figure turned, pushing back the hood of the cloak to reveal a face that was all angles and shadows. Eyes the color of storm clouds, fixed on Salira's position with unnerving accuracy. "Do you fear my spear?" Salira called out, her voice carrying across the empty expanse between them. The man's lips curved into the barest suggestion of a smile. "I will," he replied, his voice surprisingly soft yet audible, even at that distance. "If it ever stops missing." The challenge ignited something primal in Salira's chest. She vaulted from her perch, descending the ruined spire in a series of controlled jumps that would have left most gasping for breath. By the time her feet touched the desert floor, her quarry had vanished once more into the labyrinth of ruins. But she wasn't concerned. The hunt had only just begun. The ancient complex spread before her like a maze, half buried in sand and time. Collapsed corridors and broken chambers formed a bewildering landscape of shadows and light. Salira retrieved her spear, feeling the crystal hum once more as she touched it. Not the steady rhythm of detection, but something more complex, almost like a question. She ignored the sensation. The crystal was a tool, nothing more. Its vibrations were merely a manifestation of the technology embedded within it. Technology salvaged from this very ruin by her ancestors generations ago. Salira moved forward, following the barely visible footprints left in the sand. The stranger, Alex, moved deliberately, his path winding through the ruins with purpose rather than panic. This wasn't the behavior of prey. It was the calculated movement of someone who knew exactly where they were going. Doubt flickered in her mind. The elders had described him as a threat, a scavenger who stole their sacred artifacts. Yet his movements suggested familiarity with these ruins that went beyond mere theft. Perhaps there was more to this hunt than she had been told. A subtle shift in the air was her only warning. Salira dove to the side as a section of ceiling collapsed where she had stood moments before. Dust billowed around her, coating her silver skin with a fine layer of ancient grime. This was no accident, the timing too precise. the trigger too subtle. Impressive reflexes, came Alex's voice from somewhere ahead. Most hunters would have been crushed. Salira rose to her feet, spear at the ready. Most prey would be running, not setting traps. Who said I was prey? The question hung in the air, unsettling in its simplicity. Salira pushed forward, more cautious now, each step carefully placed, each shadow regarded with suspicion. The ruins were alive with danger, pressure plates that triggered collapsing floors, tripwires connected to ancient, but still functioning defensive systems, corridors that filled with poisonous gas when disturbed. Yet, as she navigated these hazards, a pattern emerged. The traps weren't placed randomly. They formed a path, a dangerous one, but a path nonetheless. Alex wasn't simply fleeing. He was leading her somewhere. The realization should have made her more cautious, but instead, curiosity began to override her hunter's instinct. What game was this stranger playing? Why lead rather than escape? She found him in a circular chamber at the heart of the ruins. Sunlight streamed through a hole in the distant ceiling, illuminating a space filled with dormant machinery, technology far beyond anything the Karash possessed. Alex stood in the center, his back to her, examining a console covered in glowing symbols. Salira raised her spear, the crystal tip pulsing with energy. "Turn around slowly," she commanded. Alex complied, his movements unhurried. Up close, his features were more striking. High cheekbones, a strong jaw, and those storm-gray eyes that seemed to look through rather than at her. "You could have thrown your spear," he observed. "Why didn't you?" Salira didn't lower her weapon. "You've gone to a lot of trouble to lead me here. I want to know why before I decide whether to kill you." A smile touched his lips, genuine this time. "Curiosity. That's good. The elders choose their hunters well." "What do you know of the elders?" Salira demanded, the spear inching closer to his throat. "I know they send their best to hunt outsiders who venture too close to understanding the truth." He gestured to the machinery around them. "I know they guard these ruins not out of reverence, but fear." "These are sacred sites," Salira countered. "Our ancestors." "We're not your ancestors," Alex interrupted. "The Karash didn't build these places. They found them, just as I did." Anger flashed through Salira. "Lies won't save you." "Then kill me," he challenged, stepping forward until the tip of her spear pressed against his chest. "But you'll never learn what's buried beneath these ruins, what your elders are truly protecting." The crystal spear vibrated in her grip. Its rhythm changed to something almost discordant. Warning or agreement? Salira couldn't tell. She had been taught that the spear resonated with truth. But what was truth in this moment? Before she could decide, a low rumble shook the chamber. Sand cascaded from the ceiling as the ground trembled beneath their feet. "That wasn't me," Alex said, his expression suddenly grave. "We have company." The eastern wall of the chamber exploded inward, showering them with debris. Salira reacted instinctively, tackling Alex to the ground as fragments of ancient stone flew overhead. They rolled behind a massive gear, taking cover as dust filled the air. From the newly created opening emerged a massive creature, a sandworm, its segmented body the color of bleached bone, its circular maw lined with rows of crystalline teeth that rotated like a drill. The beast was easily 20 feet long, with sensory appendages that twitched as they detected vibrations in the air. "Desert hunter," Alex whispered, "attracted by the collapse we triggered earlier." "We," Salira hissed. "Your traps did this." Alex shook his head. "I didn't set traps to harm. I set triggers to reveal paths that had been hidden. There's a difference." The worm screeched, the sound reverberating painfully off the chamber walls. Its sensory appendages swept the room, searching. "It hunts by vibration," Salira whispered, her hunter's knowledge taking over. "The spear will draw it." Indeed. Her crystal weapon hummed with increasing intensity, responding to the creature's presence. The worm's head swiveled toward their hiding place, attracted by the harmonic resonance. "Then use that," Alex suggested. "Direct its attention." Salira glanced at him skeptically. "So it can eat us both." "So you can drive it where you want it to go." He pointed to a section of the chamber where ancient machinery hung precariously from the ceiling. "Its outer shell is impenetrable, but beneath—" Understanding dawned. Salira nodded once, then, without warning, rolled away from their cover. In one fluid motion, she rose to her feet and hurled her spear, not at the worm, but at the far wall behind it. The crystal weapon struck with precision, embedding itself in the stone with a resonant chime that echoed through the chamber. The worm whirled, its segmented body flexing as it charged toward the sound. Salira sprinted in the opposite direction, drawing Alex with her behind a fallen column. "When it passes beneath the machinery," she instructed, "hit the control panel there." She pointed to a dust-covered console nearby. Alex moved to the panel, fingers hovering over symbols that glowed faintly beneath years of grime. "On your mark." The worm reached her spear, its maw widening to consume the vibrating crystal. The moment it positioned itself beneath the hanging machinery, Salira shouted, "Now!" Alex's hand slammed down on the panel. With a groan of ancient gears, the machinery detached from the ceiling, plummeting toward the creature below. The worm looked up too late as tons of metal crashed down upon it, crushing through its protective shell and pinning it to the chamber floor. The creature thrashed, its screech becoming a gurgle as fluid leaked from its broken body. After a few moments, it lay still, only the occasional twitch of its sensory appendages indicating that life remained. Salira approached cautiously, retrieving her spear from the wall. The crystal had stopped vibrating, now emitting a low, steady hum. She turned to find Alex examining the worm with scientific interest. "You fought these before," he observed. "They migrate through the deep desert," Salira replied. "Sometimes they surface near the tribal lands during drought seasons. And yet you knew exactly how to defeat it, using its own hunting mechanism against it." He looked up at her. "That's why you're the tribe's hunter. You understand not just how to kill, but why creatures behave as they do." Salira frowned. "You speak as if you know me." "I know your kind," Alex said, straightening. "Observers, adapters. The elders choose hunters not for their strength, but for their ability to see patterns where others see only chaos." He stepped closer, and for the first time, Salira noticed the scars that marked his exposed forearms, precise, geometric patterns that resembled the symbols on the ancient machinery. "What are you?" she asked, her spear lowering slightly. "Someone who believes that understanding is more valuable than destruction." He gestured to the chamber around them. "These ruins hold knowledge that could transform your people's lives, technology that could turn this desert into paradise. Yet the elders keep it buried, hidden behind myth and superstition." "Our traditions protect us," Salira countered, but uncertainty colored her voice. "From what? Progress? Change?" Alex shook his head. "Or is it that some changes would threaten their power?" Before Salira could respond, a new sound reached them, the whine of engines, growing louder by the second. Alex's expression darkened. "Technol Corporation," he said grimly. "They've found us." "Who?" "The real threat to your people." He grabbed her arm, pulling her toward a previously unseen passage at the back of the chamber. "They've been excavating these ruins for months, searching for something specific." "What?" "The reason your elders sent you to kill me." His eyes met hers, deadly serious. "A weapon that could destroy not just the Karash, but everyone on this planet." The narrow passage led them deeper into the ruins, descending at a steep angle beneath the desert sands. Emergency lighting flickered to life as they passed, responding to their movement after centuries of dormancy. Salira noted the smooth walls, unmarked by the passage of time, This section had been sealed, protected from the elements and scavengers alike. "These aren't just ruins," she realized aloud. "This is a facility." Alex nodded. "One of many, built by those who came before. Your ancestors, your true ancestors, found this place after the collapse of the civilization that built it. They became its caretakers without fully understanding what they were protecting." "And what were they protecting?" Salira asked. Her hunter's instincts now fully engaged in a different kind of pursuit, the hunt for truth. "Power," Alex replied simply. "Technology so advanced it might as well be magic to those who don't understand its principles. The kind of power that corrupts absolutely." They emerged into a vast underground chamber that stretched beyond the reach of the emergency lighting. Alex approached a control panel and pressed a sequence of symbols. With a low hum, the entire space illuminated, revealing row upon row of sleek, metallic pods, each large enough to hold a human body. Salira gasped. "What is this place?" "A sanctuary. Or it was meant to be." Alex moved between the rows, his fingers trailing over the surface of the nearest pod. These were designed to preserve life through catastrophe, to sleep while the world above burned, then awaken when it was safe to rebuild. "Are there people inside?" Alex shook his head. "Empty. They were never used." His expression grew distant. "The end came too quickly. Or perhaps those who built this place couldn't bear to abandon the world they'd created, even as it collapsed around them." The distant sound of engines grew louder, accompanied now by the echo of voices and heavy equipment. "Technol's excavation team," Alex said grimly. "They've breached the outer chambers." "Who are they?" Salira demanded. "Why do they want this place?" "They're a corporation from beyond your desert, from the sprawling cities on the other side of the world. They deal in weapons, power, control." Alex's voice hardened. "And they've discovered references to something hidden in these ruins, something they call the World Breaker." A chill ran down Salira's spine. "A weapon!" "The weapon, created as a last resort during the final wars of the ancient civilization, capable of tearing apart the fabric of reality itself." He turned to her, his gray eyes intense. "Your elders know it exists. They've guarded the secret for generations, sending hunters to eliminate anyone who gets too close to the truth." Salira's grip tightened on her spear. "Then why lead me here? Why show me this?" "Because Technol has already found what they're looking for. They just don't know how to use it yet." He pointed to an armored door at the far end of the chamber. "Beyond that door lies the control room for the World Breaker. I need to destroy it before they figure out how to activate it." "And you need me to help you," Salira concluded. "I need someone who can see patterns, who can adapt. Someone who understands that sometimes the greatest strength lies in knowing when not to strike." His gaze dropped to her crystal spear. "That weapon you carry, it's not just a spear, it's a key." Salira looked down at the humming crystal, seeing it with new eyes. The vibrations, the resonance with truth, the way it responded to the ancient technology. It was more than a hunting tool. It was a connection to the past she'd never truly understood. "The elders gave this to me when I completed my trials," she said quietly. "They said it was passed down through generations of hunters." "Because only the hunters could be trusted with it," Alex replied. "Only those who proved they could observe, understand, and make the right choice when the moment came." The sounds of the Technol team grew closer. They had minutes at most before they would be discovered. "I was sent to kill you," Salira reminded him. "You were sent to protect your people," Alex countered. "The elders just didn't tell you from what. Will you trust me enough to see this through? To learn the truth for yourself?" Salira hesitated, weighing 16 years of tribal teaching against the evidence before her eyes. The ruins that didn't match the stories, the technology beyond her people's capabilities, the crystal spear that resonated with this place as if returning home. "Show me," she decided. Alex nodded once, then led her to the armored door. A panel beside it contained a recess shaped like the head of her spear. "It needs authentication from a guardian," he explained. "The crystal will provide it." Salira hesitated only a moment before placing the head of her spear into the recess. The crystal's vibration intensified, harmonizing with something inside the mechanism. With a series of clicks and the hiss of ancient hydraulics, the door slid open. Beyond lay a circular room, dominated by a central platform, surrounded by control panels. Above the platform hovered a sphere of pulsing energy, contained within a field of shimmering light. The sphere was small, no larger than Salira's fist, but something about it made her skin crawl. It seemed to absorb the light around it, creating a void that hurt her eyes to look at directly. "The Worldbreaker Core," Alex said solemnly. "The most destructive force ever created." Salira stared at the sphere, transfixed by its unnatural presence. "How does it work?" "It creates a cascading quantum disruption, a tear in reality that expands exponentially once triggered." Alex approached one of the control panels, his fingers moving over symbols with practiced ease. "In theory, it could consume an entire planet within hours. Why would anyone create such a thing?" "As a deterrent, originally. A weapon so terrible it would never be used." His expression darkened. "But in the final days of the war, desperation overruled reason. They were prepared to use it, to destroy everything rather than lose." "What stopped them?" "The Guardians. A group who saw the madness for what it was. They sealed away the Worldbreaker, hid the controls, and established a new order dedicated to ensuring it would never be found." He glanced at her. "Your ancestors were among them." The revelation struck Salira like a physical blow. The stories, the traditions, the sacred duty to protect the ruins. It all made sense now, but not in the way she had been taught. "The elders lied," she whispered. "They protected you from a truth they thought too dangerous to share," Alex corrected gently. "Each generation, knowing a little less than the one before, until myth replaced history." A crash echoed from the sanctuary behind them. The Technol team had breached the inner chambers. "We need to disable it," Salira said, urgency replacing shock. "How?" Alex's hands moved faster over the controls. "The core can't be destroyed conventionally. Any attempt would trigger the very reaction we're trying to prevent. But it can be rendered inert by disrupting the quantum field that maintains its state." "And you know how to do that?" "In theory." His fingers hesitated over a sequence of symbols. "But I need access to the primary controls, and those are genetically locked to the Guardians." Salira understood immediately. "You need my blood." Alex nodded grimly. "A direct descendant of the original Guardians. The system will recognize your genetic signature." Without hesitation, Salira pressed the tip of her spear to her palm, drawing a thin line of blood. She placed her bleeding hand on the central panel, leaving a silvery red smear across its surface. The controls illuminated with new symbols, the entire system awakening to her touch. The sphere of energy pulsed more rapidly, as if sensing its impending deactivation. "Now what?" she asked. Before Alex could answer, the door behind them slammed open. Armed figures in sleek black armor poured into the room, weapons raised. Their helmets concealed their faces, but the emblem on their shoulders was clear, a stylized T overlaid on a globe. Step away from the controls," commanded the leader, a tall figure whose armor bore additional markings of rank. "Technol Corporation claims this facility, and all technology contained within." Alex moved subtly, positioning himself between Salira and the newcomers. "This technology isn't for claiming," he replied evenly. "It's for containing. You have no idea what you're dealing with." The commander laughed, the sound distorted by his helmet speaker. "Oh, we know exactly what we've found. The ultimate deterrent. The perfect weapon for maintaining order in an increasingly chaotic world. It's not a deterrent if you intend to use it, Alex countered. Sometimes examples must be made. The commander gestured to his team, who spread out around the room. The nomadic tribes have resisted Technol's resource extraction for too long. A demonstration of power will bring them in line. Horror dawned on Solera as she understood. You want to use this weapon against my people? Not the whole weapon, the commander clarified. Just enough to carve a new canyon where the most troublesome tribe currently resides. The Karash. I believe they're called... Fury surged through Solera. She raised her spear, but Alex caught her arm. That's what they want, he whispered urgently. A reason to eliminate us both. We need to complete the shutdown sequence. The commander stepped forward. Your tribal friend seems eager for violence. Typical savage response. This is precisely why regions like this need Technol's guiding hand. Solera fought to control her anger, recognizing the manipulation for what it was. She lowered her spear slightly. What do we do? She murmured to Alex. I need to input the final sequence, he replied quietly. But they'll fire the moment I turn my back. Solera assessed the situation with a hunter's eye. 8 armed Technol soldiers, advanced weapons, positioned to cover all angles of the room. Direct confrontation would be suicide. But there was another way. The crystal, she whispered. It resonates with the technology here. If I can create a strong enough vibration... Understanding flickered in Alex's eyes. He gave an almost imperceptible nod. Last chance to step away, the commander called. We have authorization to terminate obstacles. Solera straightened, her silver skin catching the light as she turned to face the Technol team fully. You say my people are savages, she called back, voice clear and strong. Yet we've guarded this place for generations without seeking to use its power against others. Noble speech, the commander mocked, but ultimately meaningless. Technology belongs to those who can use it, not those who fear it. We don't fear it, Solera replied. We respect it. With a swift motion, she struck the butt of her spear against the floor. The crystal tip emitted a high-pitched tone that reverberated through the chamber. The effect was immediate. The ancient systems responded to the harmonic frequency, emergency protocols activating throughout the facility. Lights flickered, and the containment field around the Worldbreaker core pulsed erratically. The distraction was all they needed. As the Technol team glanced nervously at the fluctuating systems, Alex turned to the control panel, his fingers flying over the symbols in a complex sequence. Fire! The commander ordered, but it was too late. The Worldbreaker core dimmed suddenly, its unnatural void collapsing in on itself until nothing remained but an inert sphere of dull metal. The containment field powered down with a declining hum. What have you done? The commander demanded, advancing with his weapon raised. Deactivated it permanently, Alex replied. The quantum state has been neutralized. It's just exotic metal now, useless for your purposes. Rage contorted the commander's voice. Kill them both! The Technol soldiers raised their weapons, but Solera was faster. She swept her spear in a wide arc, the crystal emitting a pulse of energy that disrupted the electrical systems in their armor. The soldiers staggered, temporarily immobilized as their suits reset. Run! Alex shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward a secondary exit that had opened during the system disruption. They fled through narrow maintenance tunnels, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind them. The facility was vast, a labyrinth of corridors and chambers that seemed to extend for miles beneath the desert. Where are we going? Solera gasped as they ran. Emergency exit, Alex replied. The Guardians built escape routes throughout the facility. They emerged into a larger chamber, filled with ancient vehicles. Sleek, dust-covered craft, designed for both ground and air travel. Alex made straight for one that resembled a narrow beetle, its metallic carapace dull with age. Will it still work? Solera asked dubiously. These were built to last centuries, Alex replied, pressing his hand to a panel on the vehicle's side. To Solera's amazement, lights flickered to life along its length, and a door slid open in its side. "Get in!" They barely had time to secure themselves inside before the Technol team burst into the chamber. Weapons firing. Energy blasts struck the vehicle's exterior, leaving scorch marks, but no serious damage. Alex's hands moved over unfamiliar controls, and the craft hummed to life, rising several feet above the floor. With a surge of power, they shot forward, smashing through a long, sealed exit and emerging into a tunnel that sloped upward toward the surface. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit faded. The tunnel stretched ahead, straight and true, leading them back to the world above. "They'll follow," Salira said, glancing back. "They have the resources, but not the knowledge," Alex replied. "Without the core active, there's nothing of value for them in the facility, and they don't know what we know. Which is? That there are more facilities, more pieces of ancient technology scattered across this world. Some dangerous, some beneficial." He glanced at her. "Your people have been guarding them all, without knowing what they were." The tunnel ended abruptly, opening onto the desert night. Stars blazed overhead, countless and brilliant in the clear air. The 3 moons of their world hung at different points in the sky, casting multiple shadows across the sand. Alex guided the vehicle to a halt atop a dune, far from the ruins where their encounter had begun. The desert stretched around them, peaceful and empty. "Why did you come here?" Salira asked as they exited the craft. "What were you looking for?" Alex stood gazing at the stars, his expression contemplative. "I was like you once, a hunter, sent to eliminate threats to my people. But I began to question, to see patterns that others missed." He turned to her. "There's a larger game being played across this world. Technol is just one piece of it. They seek power through control, of resources, of technology, of people. And what do you seek?" "Understanding," he smiled slightly, "and allies who can see the truth for themselves." Salira looked down at her crystal spear, seeing it now as a connection to a past she'd never fully comprehended. "The elders will want to know what happened here." "What will you tell them?" It was a question that cut to the heart of her new reality. Everything she'd believed about her purpose, her people's history, had been upended in a single day. "The truth," she decided, "or as much of it as they're ready to hear." Alex nodded approvingly. Change comes slowly to those set in their ways, but it does come. "And Technol? They'll return." "They will. But next time, the Karash will be prepared." He gestured to the vehicle. "This craft contains records, historical data, technological schematics, maps to other facilities, knowledge your people can use to defend themselves." Salira studied him, this stranger who had transformed from quarry to ally in the space of a day. "You planned this all along. You wanted me to find you, to learn the truth." "I hoped," he corrected. "The elders send their best hunters for a reason. I needed someone who could see beyond their training, who could make the right choice when the moment came." His gray eyes met hers. "You didn't disappoint." The eastern horizon began to lighten, the first of the 3 suns preparing to rise. Salira watched as golden light crept across the desert, transforming the silver sands to amber. A new day, bringing with it a new understanding of her world and her place in it. "What happens now?" she asked. "That depends on you." Alex gestured to the vast desert. "There are more ruins out there, more secrets, more pieces of a puzzle that spans centuries. I intend to find them before Technol or others like them can misuse what they discover." "Alone?" He smiled. "I've managed so far, but having a partner with your skills would improve the odds considerably." Salira considered the offer. Return to her tribe, resume her role as hunter with the burden of secrets she could only partially share, or venture into the unknown, seeking truths long buried beneath the sands. The crystal spear hummed in her grip, its vibration steady and strong, Not the warning of danger, but something else. Possibility. Purpose. My people need to know what threatens them, she said finally. But once they understand... She met his gaze. There are more hunts to come, aren't there? More than just Technol. Many more, Alex confirmed. This world's past is a battlefield of technologies beyond modern comprehension. Some seek to control them, others to destroy them. He extended his hand. I seek to understand them, to ensure they're used for protection, not destruction. Will you join me? You. Salira looked once more at the rising sun, then back to the man who had changed everything with a simple challenge. I will, if it ever stops missing. She took his hand. Let's hunt. The desert stretched before them, endless and unknown. But for the first time, Salira saw it not as the boundary of her world, but as the beginning of a much larger one, filled with secrets, dangers, and possibilities that awaited discovery. Together, they turned toward the sunrise, leaving their footprints in the silver sand as they began their journey into a future neither could have imagined when the day began. 3 months later, the desert winds howled across the abandoned Technol base, sand already reclaiming the hastily constructed outpost. Inside the main command center, 2 figures moved silently between consoles, downloading data and planting small devices at strategic points. They were planning expansion into the Eastern Territories, Salira observed, scanning a holographic map that showed Karash tribal lands, highlighted as Phase 2 acquisition zones. Not anymore, Alex replied, finishing the placement of the final device. This was their forward operating base. Without it, they'll have to pull back to the continental perimeter. In the 3 months since their first encounter, they had become a formidable team. Salira's hunting skills combined with Alex's technological knowledge made them practically invisible when they chose to be, capable of infiltrating even the most secure Technol facilities. They had also visited 6 more ancient sites, each revealing new pieces of the civilization that had once dominated their world before collapsing under the weight of its own technological achievements. With each discovery, the Karash tribe's understanding of their true purpose had expanded, transforming from simple desert nomads to conscious guardians of powers beyond their own creation. 10 minutes until the charges detonate, Alex noted, checking a small device on his wrist. We should move. They exited the command center, making their way through the deserted corridors of the base. Technol had abandoned the facility 2 weeks earlier, following a series of accidents that had made maintaining their desert operations increasingly costly. No one had died. That was a line neither Salira nor Alex would cross. But equipment failures, communication disruptions, and inexplicable system malfunctions had driven the corporation to cut their losses. Something's wrong, Salira said suddenly. Her hunter's instincts flaring, she raised her hand, signaling Alex to stop. The crystal spear on her back hummed with a warning vibration she had learned to trust implicitly. They stood motionless in the corridor, listening. The desert wind moaned through the empty building, but beneath that sound was another, the faint whine of a power system coming online. They left something behind, Alex whispered. Salira nodded, her silver skin reflecting the emergency lighting that still functioned in the corridor. Something they didn't want to transport back. They followed the sound to a sealed door marked with Technol's corporate emblem and multiple warning symbols. Alex examined the security panel. Military-grade encryption, he observed. Whatever's in there, they wanted it secure even from their own personnel. Salira removed her spear from its harness on her back. The crystal tip glowed softly in the dim light. Let's see what they're hiding. She pressed the crystal against the security panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the crystal's vibration intensified, harmonizing with the electronic lock, until the panel sparked and went dark. The door slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Inside was a laboratory. Sterile white surfaces gleamed under harsh lights, and complex equipment lined the walls. but it was what occupied the center of the room that froze them both in place. Containment pods, similar to the ones they had discovered in the ancient facility, but modern, modified with technology. Unlike the empty pods of the past, these were occupied. Through the frosted glass of the nearest pod, Celera could make out the silhouette of a human figure. "They're experimenting on people," she breathed, horror evident in her voice. Alex moved to a control terminal, his fingers flying over the interface. "Not just any people," he said grimly. "Nomads, desert tribes, including Karash." Celera's grip tightened on her spear, anger surging through her. "Why? What are they doing to them?" "Genetic analysis. Modification." Alex's face hardened as he read the data scrolling across the screen. "They're trying to isolate the genetic markers that allow certain individuals to interface with the ancient technology. Like me," Celera realized. "The Guardian bloodline." "Exactly. They couldn't reactivate the World Breaker without a Guardian. So they're trying to create their own." He continued reading. "They've collected samples from various tribes, looking for those with the strongest connection to the old world." Celera moved between the pods, counting. 23 people. We need to free them." "We will," Alex assured her, still working at the terminal. "But carefully. These pods are maintaining their vital functions. We can't simply shut them down without risking their lives." A new alarm sounded, different from the countdown to their planted explosives. Red lights flashed throughout the laboratory. "Security protocol," Alex muttered. "The system registered my access as unauthorized."
"How long do we have?"
"Minutes at most. The base's automated defense systems will reactivate." He turned to her. Decision made. "We need to change plans. Forget destroying the base. We need to evacuate these people." Celera nodded.
"I'll disable the charges we planted. How do we get them out?"
"The pods are mobile, self-contained life support systems." Alex was already manipulating controls on the nearest pod, initiating some kind of preparation sequence. "We can transport them to the nearest Karash settlement. Your healers will need to help with the revival process." Celera hesitated only briefly before racing back through the facility, disarming the explosive devices they had so carefully placed. By the time she returned, Alex had the pods disconnected from the main system and arranged for transport. "The facility's defense turrets are powering up," he warned. "We'll need cover for the evacuation." Celera smiled grimly, raising her crystal spear. "Leave that to me." They worked quickly, guiding the hovering pods through the facility toward their vehicle hidden in the shadow of a nearby dune. Automated defense turrets tracked their movement, but each time one locked on, Celera's spear would flash, the crystal emitting a pulse that disrupted the targeting systems long enough for them to advance. The last pod had barely cleared the perimeter when the facility's main systems came fully online. Weapon emplacements rose from hidden compartments in the sand, their barrels tracking the fleeing group. "Get them to the transport," Celera ordered, turning to face the defense system. "I'll cover you."
"Celera, go!"
Alex hesitated, then nodded, guiding the pods toward their waiting vehicle. Celera stood alone between the awakening facility and their escape route, her spear held ready. The first turret fired, a beam of concentrated energy cutting through the air toward her. Celera didn't dodge. Instead, she raised her spear, angling the crystal to intercept the beam. The energy struck the crystal and refracted, splitting into harmless fragments that dissipated in the desert air. More turrets opened fire. Celera moved like water, her silver form flowing between attacks, her spear an extension of herself as she deflected, absorbed, and redirected the facility's attempts to stop them. Each movement was precise, calculated, not the blind aggression of a warrior, but the measured response of a hunter who understood her opponent's patterns. Behind her, Alex had loaded the last of the pods into their transport. He watched in awe as Celera held off an entire automated defense system through skill and understanding, rather than brute force. When the last turret had been neutralized, Salira rejoined him, her breath coming in controlled gasps, her silver skin gleaming with exertion. "That," Alex said with undisguised admiration, "was something I've never seen before." Salira secured her spear in its harness. "The crystal responds to intention as much as action. The elders taught me the forms, but never explained why they worked." "Because they didn't know," Alex replied. "They preserved the training without understanding the technology behind it." He gestured to the transport, now humming with the power needed to support 23 life pods. "We should go. Technol will have received alerts by now." They departed as the first light of dawn touched the eastern horizon, leaving the disabled facility behind. Their mission had changed, evolved beyond simple sabotage to something more profound: rescue, protection, the defense of lives, rather than merely the destruction of a threat. As they traveled across the desert toward the nearest Karash settlement, Salira contemplated how much had changed in such a short time. 3 months ago, she had been a hunter pursuing a designated target, secure in her understanding of her world and her place in it. Now she was something else, still a hunter, but one who chose her own targets, who sought truth rather than merely following orders. "What will you tell your elders?" Alex asked, breaking the comfortable silence between them. Salira considered the question. "The truth. That Technol is experimenting on our people. That the ancient technology they guard is more complex and more dangerous than they've acknowledged. They may not be ready to hear it." "They weren't ready 3 months ago," Salira agreed. "But things have changed. The younger council members have begun studying the records we recovered from the first facility. They're asking questions the elders can't ignore." "Evolution rather than revolution," Alex observed. "Wiser in the long run." "And what about you?" Salira asked. "We've disrupted Technol's operations here, but they're just one corporation. You said there were others seeking the ancient technologies." Alex's expression grew distant. "There are. Some worse than Technol. Some potentially allies, if approached correctly." He glanced at her. "After we get these people to safety, I need to make contact with a group on the eastern continent. People who share our concerns about the misuse of the old world's legacy." "You want me to come with you?" It wasn't a question, but Alex answered anyway. "Yes. What we found here, it changes things. Technol isn't just looking for weapons anymore. They're trying to manipulate the very genetics that connect certain bloodlines to the ancient technology. If they succeed—" "They won't," Salira said firmly. "We'll stop them." The confidence in her voice brought a smile to Alex's face. "The hunter becomes the guardian." "I was always both," Salira replied. "I just didn't know it." They reached the Karash settlement by midday, the trio of suns high overhead. The sight of their transport approaching caused immediate activity in the tribal camp, warriors and healers assembling to meet the unexpected arrival. Among them, Salira recognized the distinctive robes of the tribal elders, the council that had sent her to hunt Alex months before. Their expressions as they saw her accompanying the stranger she had been ordered to kill were a mixture of shock, confusion, and in some cases, fear. But there was no time for explanations or recriminations. The life pods took priority. Under Salira's direction, the Karash healers began the delicate process of awakening the captives, monitoring their vital signs as they emerged from the induced stasis Technol had placed them in. It was hours before Salira and Alex found themselves standing before the council in the central tent, the air heavy with incense and expectation. The oldest of the elders, a woman whose skin had faded from silver to white with age, regarded them with ancient eyes that had seen generations come and go. "Hunter Salira," she began, her voice cracking with age but still carrying authority. "You returned to us with the very quarry you were sent to eliminate, and with 23 of our people who were thought lost to the deep desert. Explain yourself. Salira stood tall, her posture respectful but unafraid. Elder Matriarch, I return with truth rather than death. The stranger you sent me to hunt has shown me things about our world, about our purpose, that change everything. Your purpose was clear, interrupted a younger elder, his tone harsh. To eliminate a threat to our sacred sites. The threat was not Alex, Salira replied calmly. It was Technol Corporation, and others like them who seek the power of the ancients for destruction rather than protection. You speak of matters beyond your understanding, the younger elder scoffed. No, Salira countered, her voice taking on an edge. I speak of matters beyond what you chose to share with me. The World Breaker, the Guardian bloodlines, the true purpose of the crystal spears. How much of our history have you hidden from your own people? Silence fell over the council. The elder matriarch's gaze sharpened. You found the inner chamber, she said. It was not a question. I did. And I learned that our ancestors were not the builders of the sacred sites, but their protectors. That the crystal spears are keys as well as weapons. That our bloodline carries a responsibility greater than hunting outsiders who venture too close to the truth. The elder matriarch sighed, a sound as ancient as the desert itself. What would you have us do, young hunter? Abandon traditions that have kept our people safe for generations? Expose secrets that have been guarded with blood and sacrifice? I would have you adapt, Salira replied. As hunters do. The world is changing. Technol and others like them have technologies that can find what we hide, no matter how deeply we bury it. They are experimenting on our people to unlock the secrets of the Guardian bloodlines. Isolation and secrecy won't protect us anymore. And what would? Demanded the younger elder. It was Alex who answered, stepping forward to stand beside Salira. Understanding, alliance, preparation. The ancient ones left more than weapons buried beneath the sands. They left knowledge, technologies that could transform this desert into fertile land, medical advances that could eliminate disease. Dangerous knowledge, warned another elder. The ancient ones destroyed themselves with their own creations, because they used power without wisdom. Alex agreed. But you have preserved wisdom without fully understanding the power you guard. Together, they could ensure your survival and prosperity. The elder matriarch studied them both, her wrinkled face unreadable. Finally, she turned to the council. Leave us, she commanded. I would speak with the hunter and the outsider alone. When the tent had emptied of all but the three of them, the elder matriarch's posture changed, the mantle of authority slipping away to reveal the tired woman beneath. I was a hunter once, she said, her voice softer now. Many years ago, I too questioned the traditions, the secrets kept from even the most trusted among us. She reached into her robes and withdrew a crystal, smaller than Salira's spear tip, but glowing with the same inner light. I found things in the deep ruins that troubled me, things the council of my day refused to acknowledge. You knew, Salira breathed. You knew what was hidden there. The old woman nodded. Not everything, but enough to recognize that our understanding of the ancients was incomplete. Enough to fear what might happen if the wrong people discovered what lay beneath the sacred sites. Then why maintain the old ways? Alex asked. Why not prepare your people for what's coming? Change comes slowly to the desert, the elder matriarch replied. And fear makes people cling to what they know. I have tried, in small ways, to guide the council toward greater openness, to select hunters like Salira, who see beyond the surface of things. You sent me to hunt Alex knowing I might choose a different path, Salira realized. A thin smile crossed the old woman's face. I sent the most questioning, most observant hunter to pursue a target who had evaded capture for years. What did I expect to happen? Hope kindled in Salira's chest. Then you'll help us? Convince the council to embrace the truth? I will try. But traditions run deep, and many fear the technologies of the ancients more than they fear those who would misuse them. The elder matriarch's gaze sharpened. What do you propose, exactly? Alliance, Alex replied without hesitation. Between the guardian tribes like the Karash and others who seek to protect, rather than exploit the ancient sites. Education. So your people understand what they're guarding and why. Selective use of beneficial technologies that won't disrupt your way of life, but will help you defend against those who would harm you. The old woman considered his words. And the Worldbreaker, other weapons like it? Neutralized or secured beyond the reach of those who would use them. Some things are too dangerous to exist, even as deterrents. The elder matriarch nodded slowly. It will not be easy. Many will resist. But some will listen, Salira said. As you did once. Perhaps. The old woman's eyes crinkled with a hint of her former fire. And what of you, Hunter? Will you remain to help guide this change? Salira exchanged a glance with Alex. Not immediately. There are other sites, other tribes who need to understand what's happening. And there are groups beyond our desert who could become allies, or who may already be working against Technol's ambitions. The Eastern Continent, the elder matriarch mused. Yes, I have heard whispers, even here. People who remember the old warnings. She straightened. Decision made. Go, then. Seek these potential allies. I will work with the council. Prepare our people for the changes to come. She reached out, taking Salira's hands in her own. But remember who you are, Hunter. Remember where you come from. The desert has shaped the Karash for generations. It has taught us patience, resilience, adaptation. Carry those lessons with you, even as you embrace new truths. I will, Salira promised. They departed the next morning, after ensuring that the rescued captives were recovering well. The Karash healers had determined that while Technol had subjected them to numerous tests and collected genetic samples, no permanent alterations had been made to their bodies or minds. They would recover, though the psychological scars might take longer to heal than the physical ones. As their transport rose above the desert, Salira looked back at the tribal encampment, the silver tents gleaming in the morning light, the crystal spires that marked sacred places catching the sun's rays and transforming them into rainbows. For all that had changed, this was still home, still worth protecting. The Eastern Continent, she said, turning to Alex. What will we find there? A group called the Archivists, he replied, programming coordinates into their navigation system. They've been collecting and preserving knowledge from the ancient civilization for centuries. Unlike the Guardian tribes, who protected sites without fully understanding them. The archivists focused on understanding without necessarily having the means to protect. Complementary approaches, Salira observed. Exactly. Together, we might finally achieve what neither could alone. Preservation with understanding, power with wisdom. The desert fell away beneath them as their craft accelerated, heading toward the distant ocean that separated the continents. Salira felt the crystal spear vibrate gently against her back, not in warning, but in resonance with the path ahead. "Do you fear my spear?" she had asked him once, a lifetime ago. "I will," he had answered, "if it ever stops missing." It hadn't missed since they'd become allies, and for the threats that lay ahead, she would make certain it never would again. The world stretched before them, vast and complicated, and filled with both danger and possibility. But they faced it together, the hunter and the seeker, guardians of a legacy too important to be forgotten and too dangerous to be misused. Whatever came next, they would meet it with open eyes and the determination to protect not just their own people, but all who called this fragile world home. Behind them, the three suns of their world climbed higher in the sky, casting triple shadows that stretched toward a horizon limited only by imagination and courage. And in the play of light and darkness, a new future began to take shape, one written not in the language of hunters and prey, but in the shared purpose of those who understood that the greatest strength lay not in destruction, but in the wisdom to know when not to strike. Ahead, the first hints of the ocean appeared on the horizon, a glittering boundary between what had been and what might yet be. Salira adjusted their course slightly, her silver hand steady on the controls as they flew toward uncertainty, with the confidence of those who had already faced their greatest fears and emerged stronger for the journey. The crystal spear hummed against her back, a familiar vibration that had once meant only the hunt, but now resonated with something greater: purpose, protection, possibility. The hunt continued, but its nature had changed. No longer did they pursue to destroy, but to understand. No longer did they seek conquest, but connection. And in that transformation lay their greatest power. The power to change not just themselves, but the world they had inherited from those who came before and would one day leave to those who would follow. Together, they flew toward the dawn,